Hello and welcome. If you're reading this, you're likely someone who wants to improve your English quickly and efficiently. Many learners spend months or even years studying English, yet they feel stuck, unable to communicate fluently or confidently. Why does this happen? Often, it's not because English is too difficult, but because learners unknowingly make common mistakes that slow their progress. In this story, we will follow the journey of Liam, a determined English learner who struggled for years despite studying diligently. Through his experiences, we will explore the 10 most common mistakes learners make and how to overcome them, offering practical strategies that can help anyone improve English fast. Each part of this story will focus on one or more mistakes, illustrating them through Liam's real-life experiences, challenges, and breakthroughs. Liam's journey begins in a small town where he worked as a junior assistant in an international company. He loved English, movies, books, and online content fascinated him, but every time he tried to speak, he felt nervous and made frequent errors. He often translated sentences from his native language, relied heavily on grammar rules, or hesitated mid-conversation. Despite knowing vocabulary and grammar theoretically, his real-life communication remained slow and awkward. Through trial and error, Liam discovered that many learners repeat the same patterns of mistakes. Some focus too much on memorizing rules, while others neglect speaking practice. Some avoid making mistakes at all costs, which ironically hinders their progress. Liam realized that understanding these mistakes and adopting new approaches would be key to achieving fast, natural English fluency. In this story, you'll see how Liam learned to overcome fear, develop confidence, and speak English naturally. You'll learn strategies for thinking in English, speaking without translating, practicing effectively, and avoiding common traps that keep learners from improving. By following his journey, you can identify your own habits, understand what's holding you back, and take concrete steps to accelerate your English skills. Each chapter will focus on one key mistake, illustrating it with a story from Liam's life, followed by insights and practical tips. We'll explore everything from overthinking, translation, and hesitation, to misusing common phrases, ignoring listening practice, and underestimating cultural context. By the end of this series, you will have a comprehensive understanding of the pitfalls that slow learners down and actionable solutions to boost your English quickly and confidently. So, let's begin Liam's journey together. His first lesson starts with the most common mistake of all, overthinking and hesitation, a trap that affects nearly every learner, slowing communication and eroding confidence. Through his story, you'll discover how to think less and speak more, setting the stage for faster, more natural English progress. Liam's first major obstacle in learning English was overthinking every word and sentence. He wanted to be perfect, to avoid mistakes at all costs, and to construct grammatically flawless sentences before speaking. This habit caused him to hesitate constantly, sometimes leaving long pauses in conversations, and made him feel frustrated and self-conscious. One morning at work, Liam's colleague Sarah asked him, "Can you explain the new project to the team?" Liam froze. He knew the words, he understood the project, but his brain was busy checking grammar rules and sentence structures. Well, I think maybe we should," he stammered. His hesitation made him lose credibility, even though he fully understood the topic. Through reflection, Liam realized that his overthinking came from fear of making mistakes. He constantly judged his own English internally, trying to plan perfect sentences in advance. This habit not only slowed him down but also blocked natural communication. The solution, he discovered, was to accept imperfection and prioritize communication over correctness. Liam started practicing by forcing himself to speak spontaneously, even with errors. During coffee breaks, he described his day aloud in English, focusing on conveying meaning rather than correct grammar. "I go store yesterday, buy fruits, very delicious." At first it sounded rough, but gradually he became more confident in speaking before thinking too much. He also used timed speaking exercises. Liam set a timer for 1 minute and described a picture, an event, or a task. He forced himself to keep speaking without pausing to analyze or translate. Over time, These exercises trained his brain to focus on expressing ideas rather than perfecting sentences, reducing hesitation significantly. Another strategy Liam adopted was accepting mistakes as learning opportunities. When he misused a word or phrase, he corrected himself lightly and continued, rather than stopping entirely. This approach helped him realize that errors are natural and do not reduce communication effectiveness. In fact, they often helped him remember correct usage more effectively than memorizing rules. Finally, Liam integrated thinking in English into his daily routine. He described his surroundings, planned his day, and reflected on experiences internally in English. This shifted his thought process away from translation and allowed him to respond faster and more naturally in conversations. By confronting his habit of overthinking and hesitation, Liam discovered a critical lesson: fluency comes from speaking, not perfect planning. The more he practiced spontaneous expression, the less he hesitated, and the faster he improved. This first mistake, while common, became a powerful turning point in his journey toward confident, natural English. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's second common mistake: relying too heavily on translation from his native language, which slowed his speech and limited his fluency. After tackling his habit of overthinking, Liam encountered another major obstacle: relying too heavily on translation from his native language. Whenever he wanted to say something, his first instinct was to construct the sentence in his mother tongue, and then translate it word for word into English. While this approach seemed logical at first, it caused slow speech, awkward phrasing, and misunderstandings. One afternoon, Liam met a new client who asked, "What do you think about our proposal?" Liam's mind raced as he tried to translate his response from his native language. He eventually said, "I find it very, how to say, satisfactory, yes?" The client smiled politely but seemed confused. Liam realized that the translation process made his speech unnatural, even though his understanding of English was adequate. Through observation, Liam noticed that many learners made the same mistake. Direct translation often fails because languages have different grammar, idioms, and cultural nuances. A phrase that works perfectly in one language might sound awkward or even incorrect in English. For example, idioms like, "It's raining cats and dogs," or "hit the nail on the head," cannot be translated literally. Trying to do so would confuse listeners and disrupt communication. To overcome this, Liam adopted the practice of thinking directly in English. He began describing his surroundings, narrating his day, and solving problems internally in English. Instead of translating each word, he focused on meaning and context. For instance, rather than thinking, "I am going to the store," in his native language and then translating, he visualized the action and immediately thought, "I'm going to the store." This eliminated unnecessary mental steps and made his speech faster and more natural. Liam also immersed himself in English media, podcasts, YouTube videos, TV shows, and books. He paid attention to how native speakers expressed ideas without direct translation. He noticed patterns, sentence structures, and vocabulary choices, which he could internalize and reproduce naturally. Gradually, his brain began to associate meaning directly with English words, bypassing translation entirely. Another technique Liam used was speaking aloud while thinking in English. During walks or breaks, he would narrate his thoughts, make plans, or describe events in English. Initially, he mixed in translations, but with consistent practice, he reached a point where his sentences formed instinctively in English, improving both fluency and confidence. Finally, Liam practiced conversation with native speakers, focusing on expressing ideas naturally without thinking in his first language. If he got stuck, he learned to rephrase, simplify, or gesture, rather than translate word for word. Over time, he realized that translation was unnecessary. Meaning, context, and direct English thinking were sufficient. By reducing reliance on translation, Liam significantly increased his speed, fluency, and confidence. He learned that translation slows communication and often distorts meaning, while thinking directly in English makes speech more authentic and natural. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's third common mistake: focusing too much on grammar rules instead of actual communication, and how this habit can hinder progress. After overcoming translation habits, Liam discovered another obstacle slowing his English progress: an excessive focus on grammar rules. From the very beginning of his learning, he had been taught to memorize tenses, sentence structures, and exceptions. While grammar is important, Liam realized that overanalyzing every rule before speaking made his communication stiff and unnatural. During a team meeting, Liam wanted to explain a recent project update. In his mind, he was calculating verb tenses. Should I say present perfect? Past continuous? Maybe simple past? As he paused, trying to get the grammar right, other team members moved on without waiting for him. Liam felt frustrated. He knew what he wanted to say, but his focus on grammar blocked him. He noticed that many learners behave similarly. They pause excessively to ensure every word is grammatically correct. This creates slow, hesitant speech and often leads to missed opportunities in conversations. Liam realized that grammar should serve communication, not dominate it. To overcome this, Liam adopted a practice-first approach. Instead of worrying about rules while speaking, he prioritized expressing his thoughts. He allowed minor grammatical mistakes but continued the conversation. Over time, he noticed that native speakers often understand the meaning even if the grammar isn't perfect. His priorities shifted from perfection to clarity and fluency. Another strategy Liam used was learning grammar in context rather than in isolation. Instead of memorizing rules, he studied how sentences were actually used in conversations, articles, and videos. For example, instead of memorizing, present perfect is for actions that started in the past and continue to now, he noticed sentences like, I've lived here for 3 years, and she's just finished her report. By observing patterns in real English, he internalized grammar naturally. Liam also practiced speaking under time pressure. He set timers to describe events, give explanations, or narrate stories. This forced him to speak without overthinking grammar. At first, mistakes were frequent, but gradually his brain learned to apply grammar correctly automatically, without conscious calculation. Additionally, Liam combined listening and repetition exercises. By mimicking native speakers, he absorbed natural sentence structures and phrasing. This helped him build correct grammatical patterns instinctively, making speech smoother and more fluent. Through these methods, Liam learned an important lesson: fluency and confidence matter more than perfect grammar, especially in everyday communication. Grammar knowledge is valuable, but it should support communication, not hinder it. By reducing his obsession with grammar, Liam's speech became faster, smoother, and more natural. He could now focus on expressing ideas, connecting with others, and practicing English actively, rather than worrying about every rule. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's fourth common mistake: avoiding speaking practice, which is one of the biggest barriers for learners aiming to improve English quickly. After overcoming the trap of overthinking and grammar obsession, Liam discovered another major barrier: avoiding speaking practice. Despite studying vocabulary, grammar, and reading extensively, he realized that he rarely spoke English aloud. He felt nervous, afraid of mistakes, or simply unmotivated, believing that listening and reading were enough. One day, his friend Emma invited him to a language exchange meetup. Liam hesitated. "I can understand English, but I don't want to speak," he told her. At the event, he stayed quiet while others conversed fluently. He realized that listening alone does not build speaking skills, and that without practice, he couldn't improve his fluency. Many learners share this mistake. They focus on passive skills like reading and listening, thinking speaking will come automatically. However, speaking is an active skill that requires practice, and without it, learners remain stuck, hesitant, and self-conscious. To overcome this, Liam started small daily speaking exercises. He spoke aloud to himself while cooking, walking, or describing his day. Even short sentences like, "I'm boiling water for tea," or "Today I went to the market and bought apples," helped train his mouth and brain to produce English naturally. He also joined conversation groups online and in person. Initially, he spoke minimally, but gradually he learned to express ideas, ask questions, and respond spontaneously. These interactions forced him to think in English and respond in real time, dramatically improving his fluency and confidence. Another technique Liam used was shadowing. He listened to short English dialogues or podcasts and repeated immediately, mimicking pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. This not only improved his speaking skills but also helped him internalize natural sentence structures and expressions. Liam also practiced role-playing real-life situations, ordering at a cafe, asking for directions, explaining work tasks, or making small talk. By simulating conversations he would encounter in daily life, he built confidence to speak in various contexts. Over time, Liam noticed a major improvement. His brain and mouth became more coordinated, sentences formed faster, and hesitation decreased. Speaking became less stressful and more enjoyable, and mistakes no longer caused anxiety. They became opportunities for learning. From this experience, Liam learned a critical lesson: speaking practice is essential for fluency. No matter how much you study grammar or vocabulary, without speaking, progress is limited. Active practice creates natural English, confidence, and instinctive communication. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's fifth common mistake: ignoring listening practice, which can severely limit comprehension and real-world communication skills. After improving his speaking practice, Liam encountered yet another obstacle: ignoring listening practice. Although he could read, write, and speak basic English, he often struggled to understand native speakers, especially when they spoke quickly, used idioms, or employed different accents. He realized that listening skills were just as critical as speaking. One day, Liam attended an international conference. The speaker presented complex ideas at a fast pace. Liam understood only half of what was said. He felt frustrated, even though his vocabulary and grammar were strong. This experience made him understand that without regular listening practice, comprehension lags behind expression, and effective communication is impossible. Many learners focus heavily on speaking or reading, believing that listening will naturally improve over time. However, listening requires active engagement. You need to expose yourself to varied accents, speeds, and contexts to recognize patterns, vocabulary, and natural phrasing. Liam realized he needed a structured approach to listening. Liam started by listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and news in English daily. At first, he listened passively, missing many details. Gradually, he incorporated active listening techniques, repeating sentences aloud, taking notes, and summarizing spoken content in his own words. This helped him internalize pronunciation, rhythm, and sentence structure. He also practiced shadowing native speakers, repeating what he heard immediately to mimic pronunciation, intonation, and timing. This strengthened his listening comprehension while simultaneously improving his speaking fluency. Another effective method Liam used was watching TV shows and movies with and without subtitles. He started with English subtitles, then progressed to watching without any, forcing his brain to rely entirely on auditory input. This exposed him to conversational English, slang, and cultural nuances he hadn't encountered in textbooks. Liam also engaged in real-life listening practice by talking to native speakers, attending webinars, and joining discussion groups. He trained himself to focus on key ideas, tone, and context, instead of translating each word. This approach helped him follow conversations more naturally and respond accurately. Over time, Liam noticed a transformation. He could understand native speakers in real time, recognize expressions, and catch subtle nuances in tone. His confidence soared, and communication became smoother and more instinctive. From this stage, Liam learned that listening practice is essential for fluency. You cannot communicate effectively if you cannot understand what is being said. Listening and speaking must grow together to achieve real-world English proficiency. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's sixth common mistake: misusing common phrases and idioms, which often causes confusion or embarrassment for learners. As Liam's listening and speaking skills improved, he encountered another common challenge: misusing phrases and idioms. Although he had memorized many expressions from textbooks and online resources, he often applied them incorrectly in conversations, which sometimes led to confusion or unintended humor. One afternoon, Liam wanted to impress his colleagues by using the idiom, "break the ice," during a team meeting. He confidently said, "We need to break the ice about the project timeline." But the team looked puzzled. Liam realized later that he had used the idiom in a context that didn't fit. This small mistake embarrassed him and reminded him that knowing an idiom isn't enough. Understanding its proper usage is crucial. Many learners make this mistake because idioms and phrases are highly context-dependent. A literal translation or memorization rarely works. For example, expressions like, "hit the nail on the head," or "under the weather," cannot be applied literally. Using them incorrectly can confuse listeners or even seem awkward. To overcome this, Liam adopted a context-focused approach. Instead of memorizing phrases, he paid attention to how native speakers used them in conversations, movies, and podcasts. He noted when an idiom was appropriate, its tone, and subtle nuances. Gradually, he built a mental library of phrases that he could use naturally and accurately. He also practiced role-playing scenarios with colleagues and friends. By experimenting with phrases in real conversations, he learned which expressions fit casual, formal, or humorous contexts. This practice reinforced correct usage while boosting his confidence. Liam also created a personal idiom journal. Whenever he encountered a new phrase, he wrote down its meaning, usage examples, and possible contexts. Reviewing and applying these entries in conversation helped him internalize expressions without rote memorization. Additionally, Liam learned the importance of simplifying language when unsure. If he didn't fully understand a phrase, he would paraphrase the idea rather than risk using it incorrectly. This approach ensured communication remained clear and professional. Over time, Liam's understanding of phrases and idioms became intuitive. He could now choose expressions that fit naturally, enhancing his fluency and making his speech more engaging. He realized that idioms are not just decorative, they add clarity, nuance, and cultural authenticity to communication when used correctly. By addressing this mistake, Liam significantly improved his ability to sound natural, confident, and culturally aware in English. Misused phrases no longer caused hesitation or embarrassment, allowing him to focus fully on effective communication. In the next part, we'll explore Liam's seventh common mistake, underestimating the importance of writing practice, which can reinforce vocabulary, grammar, and overall fluency. After mastering idioms and phrases, Liam realized another critical mistake, underestimating the value of writing practice. For a long time, he focused primarily on listening and speaking, believing that writing was less important for real-life communication. However, he soon discovered that writing reinforces vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, and critical thinking, all of which directly impact speaking fluency. One evening, Liam needed to write an email to an international client explaining a project issue. He struggled to organize his thoughts and choose the right words. Although he could speak about the issue, writing required precision and clarity that he had not practiced adequately. The client misunderstood parts of the message, creating unnecessary confusion. Liam realized that without writing practice, his overall English proficiency remained incomplete. Many learners make this mistake, focusing solely on speaking and listening. While oral skills are essential, writing strengthens the mental framework of language. It allows learners to experiment with vocabulary, sentence structure, and idiomatic expressions in a controlled environment, which in turn improves spontaneous speaking skills. To address this, Liam began daily writing exercises. He wrote emails, journal entries, summaries of articles, and reflections on his day entirely in English. Initially, he worried about grammar mistakes, but he reminded himself that writing is a tool for learning, not a test. This mindset encouraged him to write more freely and creatively. Liam also practiced structured writing tasks. He outlined essays or reports before writing, which helped him organize ideas clearly and logically. Later, he compared his work with model texts or native speaker examples to identify improvements. This process taught him how to express complex ideas effectively and naturally. Another technique he used was peer feedback. Liam exchanged written texts with friends and language partners. Constructive corrections helped him identify recurring mistakes, expand vocabulary, and apply grammar more naturally. Over time, he noticed that the improvements in writing translated directly to speaking, making him more articulate and confident. Liam also combined writing with reading practice. He analyzed articles, highlighted interesting phrases, and incorporated them into his writing. This approach reinforced both comprehension and production, strengthening his overall language intuition. Through consistent writing practice, Liam developed clarity, precision, and confidence in English. He realized that speaking fluently was easier when he had already practiced organizing ideas in written form, making communication smoother, faster, and more natural. By correcting this mistake, Liam further strengthened the foundation of his English, preparing him to tackle the next common challenge, neglecting pronunciation and intonation, which we will explore in the next part. After improving his writing, Liam encountered another subtle yet critical obstacle, neglecting pronunciation and intonation. Even though he could speak English fluently and accurately, native speakers sometimes struggled to understand him, or his speech sounded flat and unnatural. He realized that pronunciation and rhythm are essential for clear and engaging communication. During a team call with international colleagues, Liam explained a technical issue. His grammar and vocabulary were correct, but some words were mispronounced, and his sentences lacked natural rhythm. One colleague asked him to repeat himself multiple times. Liam felt frustrated but understood that accurate pronunciation and intonation are crucial for comprehension. Many learners focus exclusively on grammar and vocabulary, assuming that pronunciation will improve naturally. However, English has many sounds, stress patterns, and intonation rules that differ significantly from other languages. Mispronouncing even common words or using unnatural intonation can lead to misunderstandings or reduced confidence in conversations. To improve, Liam began listening attentively to native speakers and mimicking their pronunciation. He practiced minimal pairs, which are words that differ by a single sound, such as ship and cheap, or bat and bet. This helped him refine subtle differences in vowels and consonants that previously caused errors. He also focused on intonation and stress patterns. Liam noticed that native speakers emphasize certain words to convey meaning or emotion. By practicing stress and rhythm, he could sound more natural, expressive, and easier to understand. Reading aloud and shadowing dialogues from podcasts, movies, and audiobooks became part of his daily routine. Additionally, Liam recorded himself speaking and compared it to native speakers. He identified words, phrases, and sentences where his pronunciation or rhythm was off. This self-feedback loop allowed him to fine-tune his speaking gradually, leading to measurable improvements. He also practiced pronunciation in context, using full sentences and conversations rather than isolated words. This approach helped him develop natural speech flow, intonation, and emphasis patterns that mimic authentic communication. Over time, Liam noticed a significant transformation. Colleagues could understand him effortlessly, and his speech sounded confident, engaging, and natural. He realized that pronunciation is not just about sounds, it's about clarity, rhythm, and expressing ideas convincingly. By addressing this mistake, Liam moved closer to complete fluency, combining vocabulary, grammar, confidence, writing, and listening with clear, natural pronunciation. The next step in his journey involved tackling another common barrier, lack of cultural and contextual understanding, which we will explore in the final part. As Liam approached the final stages of his English learning journey, he identified two remaining obstacles: neglecting cultural context and underestimating the importance of persistence. Even with strong grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation, Liam sometimes misinterpreted phrases or social cues. During a business lunch, he used the phrase, "It's raining cats and dogs," in front of colleagues unfamiliar with the idiom. While he understood it perfectly, some listeners were confused. He realized that cultural understanding is key to effective communication, as language is intertwined with context, tone, humor, and social norms. To overcome this, Liam immersed himself in cultural content, movies, TV shows, podcasts, and conversations with native speakers. He studied how people use language in real situations, paying attention to politeness, humor, sarcasm, and emotional nuances. This helped him adapt language to context, making his speech more relatable and authentic. He learned when to use formal versus informal expressions, how tone affects meaning, and how culture shapes communication. The final challenge was persistence. Liam noticed that progress was not linear. There were days when he struggled with new words, mispronounced phrases, or forgot rules he had learned. Many learners give up during these plateaus, but Liam understood that consistent effort over time is the true key to fluency. He created a daily routine that combined listening, speaking, writing, reading, and cultural immersion. Even 20 to 30 minutes of focused practice daily compounded into significant improvement over months. He celebrated small wins, embraced mistakes as learning opportunities, and reminded himself that language mastery is a journey, not a destination. By addressing all 10 common mistakes, overthinking, reliance on translation, grammar obsession, avoiding speaking, neglecting listening, misusing phrases, ignoring writing, neglecting pronunciation, ignoring cultural context, and inconsistent practice, Liam transformed his English. His confidence, fluency, and natural communication dramatically improved. In conclusion, Liam's journey teaches us a simple but powerful lesson. Fast and effective English learning is not about memorizing rules or avoiding mistakes. It's about thinking in English, practicing actively, embracing mistakes, and understanding the cultural context. If you follow his example, you can avoid the pitfalls that slow learners down. Focus on communication, consistency, and real-world practice, and you'll discover that fluency, confidence, and natural English expression are within reach. By learning from mistakes and committing to daily practice, anyone can improve their English quickly and effectively, just like Liam.